especially the track reference code.
I'll just change the color.
What's the relation between
Let
the
me
reference
just,
code?
I'll go to run on the legend. That'd be easier if I. So it's pretty straightforward. It is what the instrument is using for every 1 second it is going across the channel as its reference. Okay, so here it is using the VTG, its track reference, not its bottom track reference. Okay, here it's using number 1, which is the 3 megahertz transducers to be and bottom track. Here it's gone to number 2, it's using the 1 megahertz for bottom track. Now ideally, water velocity is better measured with high frequency, and depth and bottom track is better measured using a lower frequency. So what the instrument tries to do is as quickly as possible switch to using the 1 megahertz for bottom tracking while staying in 3 megahertz for water velocity. So it can be pinging 3 megahertz for velocity and 1 megahertz for depth.
So they're
simultaneously. They're totally. There's a different.
So if they all have to use the same transducer, that slows it down. So if they can separate.
Actually, it doesn't. That actually doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay, because it still interleaves the pulses. It does slow down slightly, but it's not to the degree that we should worry about. Okay, it's roughly pinging 70, 80 pulses per second, but it depends as to whether it's using 3 megahertz, 1 megahertz, whatever, as to how it allocates all of those pings. There are different engines inside the device allocated to 3 megahertz bottom tracking, 1 megahertz bottom tracking, 3 megahertz velocity, 3 megahertz, 1 megahertz velocity. And so it's doing all of that, is processing simultaneously but independently. Okay? And that's all that that's doing. The bottom track, for depth and for bottom track, will switch to 1 megahertz at about 70 centimeters.
And in many cases, the GGA and the VTG mod are used and were used in the.
It's something if I look here, I haven't noticed it. I bet you have got enabled. Yes, composite tracks enabled. Okay, so what that is doing, composite tracks is where if we lose bottom track, it will infill with GPS. Or if you said that you want GPS to be your default, if we lose GPS, it will infill with bottom track. It's only any good if the base data is any good. You know, if our GPS data has a lot of multipath errors in it or whatever, it's no good in filling lost bottom track with poor GPS data. I always set my default of composite tracks as off or disabled.
In this case, the GGA mods are used in this case.
Yeah, you're switching between 1 megahertz bottom track and the VTG. Okay, for your track reference. Okay, now I think. I hope this doesn't prove me wrong.
What?
Okay, we've now gone back to 0 and 2. Okay, rather than 2 and 4. So where it now says 0, Okay, it was saying 4 for VTG. Okay, it's because the bottom track became invalid. You see this icon up here? When this is yellow, the bottom track is only working for depth readings. Okay, when it's blue, it's working for depth and position.
The track reference is on the right axis, right? So it's 2 and
2 and 0.
2 and 0, is it?
In this case, how to plug the track of button track to plug the button track from the reference.
For VTG only? Or sorry. Okay, so at the moment, because I've turned, here I turned composite tracks, I disabled it. Okay, so when that is disabled, it is only using whatever you've set as your default method of calculation, one or a single method of calculation. The default on here that has been set is bottom track. Okay, so with composite tracks turned off, if bottom track fails, it just fails. Okay, we have good track, no track, good track, no track. Okay, that's not very good. That's the idea of composite tracks, is to try and make a good track out of what would otherwise be meaningless. If I had gone to VTG as my track all the way across, so change bottom track to VTG, okay, it's now saying that track reference is the GPS VTG. And if I go T here, we see that it's using the VTG as its track reference all of the time. That's what that's about. It's just a quick visualization for you to see how what it's using for the bottom tracking.
My suggestion is that we finish the questions now.
Okay.
And then tomorrow morning we go to
Field.
our measurements and field.
And then
we come back, answer questions, and then we go back to the QC at the very end of the day, and we have.
And that'll be more relevant then.
Yeah. Then at the very end of tomorrow, we go through the QC steps.
Of everything that we've collected.
Right, so we'll do the questions now, finish those up. In the morning, we'll do the measurements, and then come back, look at the data, and then we'll go through step-by-step QC. I think that's good. So let's finish up the questions. Mr. Holmes, we got to meet here. I want to know about this earlier.
So I'm assuming it means yes and no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
But you've done this already.
Okay. So you want to do the okay, so I've just put up a couple of just different examples from. Okay, so here we have some typical SNR plots. Okay, so picture it, sensor here, pulses of sound going down into the water, full strength here, and as it goes down into the water, it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker the further it gets away from the instrument. 4 beams, it all looks quite noisy. It's in high definition data. We're seeing very precisely what's happening in there. What we see here, this one beam, the yellow one, number 4, has got a spike here, and then another one. This is where that beam has hit a hard object. I'm assuming it's the ground, but maybe it could be some large vegetation. It could be a stick or something like that, just setting up off the ground. I would imagine it's probably something I think maybe a log or a stick. It's hit that, and then this is actually the bed. Okay, this one that we're seeing here. And then the other ones are carried on down, and then we get the next one that clicks in is beam number 1. Okay. So that's what we're seeing. The instrument will only use data where we have got 4 good beams of data. Okay? So when we use this data down to this point here, down to about 1 metre, it will still store the data beyond, but it will not use it in the discharge calculation. Anything below this point will be extrapolated. This grey line here is where it is determining the mean bed position from the 4 beams. Just a very slightly different one here. Rather than the 3 megahertz, we've got the 1 megahertz. We're going a bit deeper, and we're seeing here beams 1 and 2, okay, hitting the bed before beams 3 and 4. So, because it's the 1 megahertz, assuming we've got the orientation like this becomes beam 1, beam 2, beam 3, beam 4. These 2 are hitting earlier, so we can be pretty sure that what's happened is, as it's gone across, the bed is just coming up, those 2 beams. It's a very natural occurrence as the bed is sort of tapering away up to the banks. Here we have data from pulse incoherent. Okay, it all looks much smoother. Okay, there's actually less resolution to it. There's less number of cells it's actually collecting. It actually pulses those together. This is a pretty much ideal plot. All 4 overlaying each other and hitting the bed all around about the same point. Okay, this is the 1 megahertz, again in incoherent. Can somebody give me a guess or even tell me what's happening there? Sorry? Could be, but I think probably not. We've probably, on a photograph we looked at earlier, seen something that would have come up with something quite similar to this. The vegetation on the bed, okay? So we're seeing this is the standard decay, and then we're starting to get the vegetation, quite a thick blanket of vegetation there. Okay, and that's and the sound is all reflecting off of that.
So in this case, the system determines the depth based on what?
Yeah, well, what it's determined the bed on, because it's then seen a really sharp spike, which sort of corresponds to what we'd expect for the bed of the channel. So it's measured the depth accurately, probably. Remembering, that we send out different pulses for velocity. Even if we're using the same 1 megahertz, okay, it has a different type of pulse that it sends out for velocity to what it sends out for bottom tracking and for bed detection. So for every, in the 3 megahertz, for every 60 pulses it will send out for velocity, it will send out 9 for bottom tracking. Okay? So that would probably be what we're seeing down here. The bottom track is picking up the bed very well. The problem you then have to look at is how has the software determined whether the velocity is accurate or not. Because if it's saying that it's going to try and work all the way down to here, the velocity in this is quite likely to be in error. Okay? And in in that you would expect to start seeing the velocities all look very erratic. Okay, so in this one, the velocities will look very, very nice, sort of starting off at, you know, sort of the brighter colours going down to the blues. Okay, in here, I would imagine we've started off bright, and then it's suddenly gone all bright again. It's sort of dark colours. Thinking it was
standard deviation.
standard deviation. That's another thing to look at. Standard deviation will start drifting off and everything like that. We've already talked about this one, but let's again. So what's this? What's happened on this one? We know the answer to this. What's caused it? Why is the blue one offset? Why?
Anyone?
Air. It's the air entrainment around the transducer. Okay. Now, when we get this offset, 99 times out of 100, that will be there is an air bubble or a pocket of air around the transducer. If you see that, lower your instrument down in the water. What about this one? Okay, so we started off, they've all pretty much left at the same point, down to about 1 metre, they're very similar. And then we get 2 where the decay has become greater, the SNR is reducing quicker, and 2 where it's sort of probably in a lesser line.
Going behind a boat.
Could be, there's all sorts of that could be. It could just be that maybe there's so we've got beams 1 and 2, so that's on one side. It is one. No, it's 3 networks. So 1 and 2 is 1 and 2. So that's this one and this one. Those 2 are pointing that way. These 2 are pointing this way. There's probably just an eddy might be an answer. It could be that you've got sort of a plume of sediment coming down one side of the channel, and the other side of the water slightly cleaner, and so it's seeing that. And that's why we see this, although they look quite similar, one the sound is being absorbed greater than the other one. Would I be too worried about that? No. They've left at the same point, so everything, you know, it's just reporting what's happening. The problem occurs for us because we've got down to 0 SNR before we've got any grey showing. The grey shows when we've detected bed. So at this, we have got no detection for the riverbed. Okay? We've actually got some quite good velocity data until we get to 1 decibel. The instrument works right down to 1 decibel of data signal for the data coming back. But then we've got no bed or anything to reference it to. That would be fine if that was being used as a stationary measurement, and we were putting in where the bed was, manually typing that in. It would be fine if we were using GPS, and our GPS was good. Okay, well, it would be fine until that point there, so we'd be getting good velocity data down to 5 metres. Okay, where it doesn't work for us is where we're referencing everything to bottom track, and bottom track for depth. You think another example for? That covers the main ones that you will come across. sort of just show the different extrapolation. So if I go to the toolbox, profile extrapolation, by default, the instrument uses a 1/6 power law for its extrapolation for the surface and for the bed. I don't know what your preference is here. What do you use?
Do they have a preference in Taiwan for the extrapolation? The 1/6 power law or?
We use a 1/6 power law because that is basically, in hydrometry, what the velocity contour shape for a channel works out is. It's why we use the 0.6 point method and everything. So, and we base it all around this 1/6 power law. It's been tested over more than a century in channels and proven to be very successful. Of course, as one professor once said, the river never went to college, so it doesn't know to stick to the 1/6 power law, and it doesn't always do that. So we have a couple of options where we can put what we can put in. If you're not sure what you're doing, the 1/6 power law works very well. Okay, but we can apply a constant where we can say, okay, I want you to extrapolate at the top based on the first good cell or however many number of cells you want that to be. So you can apply that straight up. Okay? Or we can have the 3-point slope. Okay? Where it uses just the top 3 cells and it applies those up. How they sort of decay, it applies those up to the surface. Typical instances where you might want to change this away from the power law are if you've got very high winds blowing down the river or up the river, speeding up the water surface or slowing it down. Okay? And so the power law doesn't fit anymore because that's not what's actually happening. Okay, so that would be good reasons for changing those. And you know, you'd have to make your own decision as to which ones you use. Now, people often use the constant for the one in high wind situations, but that again depends on where your first cell is actually located. How accurate can that be? The USGS, as their default, use power law, but then will quite quickly switch to the 3-point slope. Okay, if they have any concerns about the power law. At the bottom, we wouldn't really want to have a constant at the base. You might do if there was I suppose if the bed was moving at the speed of the water above it, so you could do that. But typically the power law works pretty well. Where it fails is where, you know, that 1/6 power law sort of says it ends up with you sort of having the bed actually having movement to it. Okay? And that's where people would actually use the no slip. Okay? And then you apply whichever cells you want, whatever percentage you want at the bottom, and it forces it to 0 at the bed. If you want to just quickly have a look, not the greatest example here, but this is, how did we set it up? So at the moment we're using no slip and the 3-point slope at the top. Oh, I haven't applied it, sorry. We need to apply that. And you see how it applies that to the bottom here. So the blue line is where it's actually applying the power law throughout the data. And then the top.
What's the question?
My question is the middle figure.
The middle figure. You want to understand that more?
Yeah, this is, so we've just, if you see I'm changing the extrapolation methods here, this is showing the discharge extrapolation. If I just take
Velocity is not discharge.
so here, this is for the extrapolated piece at the top and at the bottom. So here we're using the no slip, so it's forced it to 0 based on this data. And here we're using the 3-point slope. So it's using the top 3 cells and it's applying those to the surface. I would say that that wouldn't work in this particular instance. Okay, so if I do the power fit and apply it, okay, so that's just continuing that power law all the way out to the surface.
So there's a gap between the yellow line and the purple line.
There is, and that the reason is just how. Okay, so if we have the power law, that's how it fits throughout the whole.
Okay. So in general, before it's used the power law to.
I would definitely, in the majority of situations, you will be using the power law. Okay. This is actually, you know.
It's a new version, right?
No.
The old version, you cannot see the sample to show the fit.
No, that's always been there.
Yeah,
You just have to select it from here. So if you choose what you want, so summary discharge. So if I change that to water track, and so let's just say velocity standard deviation, that's what we would show in there.
Okay.
If I want to see the power law, I choose discharge.
Picture. It's so weird because the axis should be velocity. What's the unit that you put in discharge? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's in discharge. It's cubic meters per second. It's because that it's actually what it's calculating the discharge in the centre portion. Okay. It is, yeah.
But the blue line is the major velocity.
That's the power.
Major.
That's the power law
No,
calculated.
I mean, the one last.
Oh, this blue line here. Sorry.
The
Yeah,
major.
that's the measured data.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the calculated power law from that data,
Yeah, from the blue line.
from the blue line. And if you really know your power law coefficients, you can start fiddling around there. I don't. Here we can also choose how much of the bottom data we want to discard. Okay, so if I go back to the transit, here, make that 1%, apply that, you'll see actually we start showing or using more of the velocity data towards the bed. At this particular site where this data is not good, I definitely wouldn't do that. I would not. I would leave it at 10%.
10%.
The 10% is based on that if with the instrument at the surface, we got the bed down here, the beams are coming down, and they actually, I'm going to exaggerate it, they actually get broader as they come down. And so the bottom part of here is hitting the bed before the equivalent part here. The cells, although we think of them being divided that way, they're actually divided that way, and then they're transformed round. Okay? So what happens here is that this hits before this does. Okay? So this starts to get interference in that cell. And so by the 10% allows, you also have something that we can, the side lobes, doing this, side lobe. Okay, so that's, you know, I'm talking over here, you can still hear me, that's a side lobe. Okay, if I talk directly at you, you can hear better, but it's still spread.
I can still hear him.
You can still hear.
He's talking that way, but the sound is good.
There's a good side lobe. Okay. SonTek, I don't want to go too much into the sales stuff, but they shade their transducers really well. Okay, and so the side load is massively reduced, and this main portion of sound is really strong. Okay, so we can. But what we say is because the route from the side load from here to there with the side load is even shorter than this, having 10% as your cut-off is the safety bit before we start to get any sound interference from the side load. If you become really good at looking at your data, you can go to thresholds, cell screening turned off, and apply it, and it actually shows you all of the data that it has collected. You can look at that and say, actually, that velocity data is really good, much lower. So to do with the bed type, how the side loads have not interfered, you can actually say, actually, I want to go down, and I want to use the data to closer to the bed. 10% is a really nice safe value. Okay. But that's why you have that white area, or black in the older software. Okay. It's also something you can't always get all the way to the bottom because it's only valid for where you have 4 complete cells of data. Okay. So if one beam is hitting the bed before the other 3, okay, we'll always cut it off short then.
So the customer really care about sparring measurement and they want to know the velocity recross the boundary layer. So in the past part, can discard to the 0 and can they have for the results?
Because some research they use
Yeah.
ADCP to measure the load.
Technically, yes, the software is not good at doing that for you. It's designed at trying to keep good discharge data.
But if we would
You
get
could.
our own raw data and we here.
How I would do it,
Measure that.
how I would do that is, if I go back to system settings, if you do an export of the data
Yeah.
to MATLAB or to ASCII,
Yeah.
it will export it however you've set it up on the screen. So if you set it up as bottom track using the compass, that's how it will export. That's all the references
Yeah, I
you've been
think the data is without the quantum track and use the compass data, maybe.
If you set it as beam coordinates,
Yeah.
okay, it will export the data by velocity by beam only. Okay, so that would be the better way for you if you're wanting to about some boundary measurements. It's not going to be perfect. I'm sorry. The old PC-ADP was designed for that. It was that's how it was specifically done. And we actually, with the old PC-ADP, we actually kept the beam spread even less. So we had a 15 degree rather than 25. You know, so that we could actually get closer and closer to the boundary.
Yeah, sometimes we with security customer they use ADV for really cross boundary measurement for an AD or something.
Yeah.
But sometimes they want to have a more big area
Yeah.
of measurement and velocity. So sometimes
I
they
would,
ADV doing that.
How deep is the water, David?
That's around 3 meters.
Okay.
Right, so if it's, so,
Typically it's covered with the starting one.
right,
Yeah.
so 10%, right? So if the water is 3 meters and they're at the surface, if they push it down more, 10%, it gets smaller and smaller, so they'll get closer. So they can put it underwater.
Centimeters?
10% from the bottom.
Right.
No, it's,
Well, in 3 meters, 10%. And you push it down underwater.
no, it's 10% of the pulse of the pulse.
Right.
Not
Oh,
not
not
from-
From the track.
yeah, not from
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you'll always have that.
Yeah.
I would, and I wouldn't do it as a moving boat. I'd still use the moving boat software, but I'd put it in station. I'd
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah. So I will share like the PCADB that they done before. Yeah, but just we change to the M9 in
Yeah.
the passport. Because it's also it's a first coherent name. Yeah.
No, it's technically yes,
Yeah.
but we've got no way of you getting that. But technically, yes.
Well, it's for low data, then we
Make a note. Make a note. When we go to San Diego, I'm in San Diego next week. I will,
because that's the only can be used
Oh, okay.
um,
Yeah. So the questions we answered,
Yeah,
we haven't.
no problem. Tomorrow we can use to collect the data and we can,
go through this again.
yeah.
Okay.
OK， 那我们谢谢我们的原厂的技师 Mark 还有丽。那我们明天要去野外观测。那游览车是9点到，那我是9点出发，那我们8点半就开始报到。那今天有请各位写那个保险的资料，那欢迎各位明天继续参与。明天的话就是跟实际操作、量测资料，回来把今天讲的就真的做一遍。那拿到资料的时候，我会请我们同事把它拖在电脑上面每一台。他讲一步你就操作一步，这样就会比较有感觉，好不好？好，谢谢各位。